These are one of my favorite skirts I have ever made. You can adjust how revealing you want them to be. They aren't too tight, so they feel pretty comfortable, but at the same time they look quite hot. This skirt features 2 drawstrings at the front, which you can use to make the gathering, and you can adjust the height of the slit. Plus, if you don't want the waist at the front to be tilted like this, just push the gathering more towards the hem and you will get a straight waistline. This sewing project is on advanced beginner level because we are going to sew the invisible zipper, the bias tape at the front, facing at the back, and baby hem. If this is something you haven't done before, don't worry, that's why I am showing everything step by step here. Just be aware that this skirt will take a bit more time compared to the super easy sewing projects. I will be using our Sylvie skirt sewing pattern, which you can find in our Etsy or online store. The links are down in the description. This pattern comes in A0 format, which you can print at the copy shop, and US letter A4 format, which you can print with the regular printer at home or in office. There are only 4 pattern details. I want to bring to your attention that this middle seam edge for the front panel looks as if it was going along the straight grain, but it's not the case. Please follow the straight grain arrow. In this video I will be using a very light silk fabric, but you can also use light to medium weight cotton, viscose, polyester fabrics. I was about to say to look for fabrics that drape well, but then I started to think how nice this design would look in faux leather. Feel free to experiment. You will also need matching threads, an invisible zipper that is around 20 cm long, and small amount of interfacing for the back waistband and seam allowance where the zipper will go. I will mostly use a sewing machine and a serger to neaten the seams. If you don't have a serger, then use a sewing machine zigzag stitch. Let's start by cutting out all the details. Just in case, those small panels are for the Sylvie top, so I am making a complete cord set here. If you are also working with a light and slippery fabric, my recommendation is to use as many weights as you have. Here I am even using old candle jars, and I also pin the pattern details a lot, which I usually try to avoid. Don't forget to mark the notches either with a marker or by making small trims in the seam allowance. This is how I mark the darts. I cut only one side of the dart in the paper pattern and then I fold the other side of the dart. This way I can correctly cut the upper edge while I also mark the dart. I am using a soap on this fabric because my marker bleeds out. And don't forget to cut the interfacing. For the zipper area, I will cut 2 straps that are 23 cm long and 2.5 cm wide. Let's prepare our details first before sewing. Start by pressing on the interfacing on the back-facing panels and also on that zipper area at the back middle seam. Take both back panels and sew all 4 darts. My favorite way is to take a pin, put it through the tip of the dart and lift the fabric up and then pin the rest of the dart. So when I pin, I start from the narrowest part of the dart, but when I sew, I stitch from the widest part of the dart. This way I can easily take out the pins when I am sewing. This might be controversial, but I do prefer to backstitch whenever I can. With darts, it might be risky though to mess up the fabric, especially if you are sewing a light fabric. Alternative option to backstitching would be to leave longer tails of the thread, then tie in a knot and cut off the loose threads. Press the darts towards the middle line of the back. When I press darts, I place them on the rounded corner of my ironing board. This way I can press them flat without making any creases in the rest of the fabric. Take both back panels and neaten both middle seam allowances. If you are also using a serger, remember that for woven fabrics you need to use only 3 thread stitch. 4 thread stitch is mostly for jersey fabrics. Even though I managed to put the perfect settings, the neatened edge looks a bit creased and gathered. It is totally normal, especially for light fabrics, and that's why I will quickly press it out. There is a notch at the back panel. I lost it because I pressed the interfacing on it. Anyways, find it and start pinning from this notch down to the hem. Make a stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Press the seam open. We are ready to sew the invisible zipper. Change the regular sewing machine's foot to the zipper's foot. The one on the right is the best foot for invisible zippers. Sadly, it doesn't fit my Genome machine, so I will be using the regular zipper foot. And you can get a good result with this one as well. Lay the right side of the zipper's tape on the back panel's right side. It looks a bit twisted now. Make sure that the top plastic starts 1 cm below the upper edge. Pin horizontally. Make a stitch around 4 mm apart from the edge. Stop the stitch approximately 2 cm above the middle seam starts. After that, make another stitch that goes exactly next to the zipper's teeth. Just be careful not to stitch on the zipper's teeth because then it will not work. With the first stitch we are securing the zipper in the exact place so it doesn't move around. This allows us to make the perfect second stitch right next to the zipper's teeth. You can close the zipper to check if it's working. If it works, then perfect, open it again and let's work with the other side of the opening. Make sure that the right side of the zipper starts exactly at the same place as the left side. Pin it. Make the first stitch 4 mm apart and then the second stitch right next to the zipper's teeth. And here as well, end the stitch around 2 cm above the middle seam. For now, we have to leave a hole there, otherwise we will not be able to get the slider up to the top. Carefully press the zipper area. Close the zipper and let's finish the middle seam so we don't have this hole on top of our booties. Lay the back panels with the right sides facing. Make a stitch that connects the previously made zipper stitch to the middle seam stitch. Most likely you will not be able to start the stitch exactly at the zipper stitch, so don't worry about it. It is totally fine if this stitch is about 1 to 2 mm apart. From the outside it will look good anyways. Give a light press there and then it will look perfectly flat. Neaten the side seams for the back and also for the front panels. And again, give a quick press to smoothen out the neatened edges. Lay the back panels right side with the front panel right sides. Pin the side seams. I swear, in the pattern the side seams are perfectly equal in the length, but I guess because the front panel's side seam is almost on bias, it has stretched out probably already after cutting and even more after the neatening. This is quite a common issue, and for this reason always start pinning from the upper edge that goes along the waist. We will even out the hem later. Make a stitch starting from the hip area, it doesn't matter exactly where, down to the hem. This is a very out-of-the-box way how to make skirts, but trust me, we need the upper edges not to be connected for now. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Press the seam open. To even out the hem allowance, lay the front and back skirt panels facing each other. Make sure that they are perfectly matching at the waist and side seams. Flatten everything out and add a few pins to make sure that both layers are staying together. Use a marker or soap to mark the new hemline. In a way, there isn't this awful corner. The back and front panels should be even at the hem. I am slightly redrawing the hemline at the front. It is a bit of a freestyle. Remember that the hem at the front will lift with the gathering, so you cannot do anything much wrong with it. Even if you shorten the hem at the front middle by a crazy amount, it will look good. You will just have less of the gathering effect. Usually this would be the last step, but this time is different, so let's do the hem already. I will be using a baby hem, so fold 1 cm of the hem allowance and make a stitch around 2 to 3 mm apart from the folded edge. The baby hem is one of the most time-consuming types of hems, but it also looks very sophisticated, so take your time. However, if I was making this skirt from very thick fabric, then I would neaten the hem and then fold and stitch. Give a quick press around the hemline. Trim off the excessive amount of the hem allowance. Use your sharpest scissors and be careful not to cut in the stitch or in the skirt panels themselves. In the past, I used to do this step with manicure scissors that had this curved tip, and that helped me a lot not to cut in the fabric, but also at the same time I could get very close to the stitch. After you have cut everything off, fold the hem again and make a stitch around 3 to 4 mm apart from the folded edge. I used to challenge myself with how tiny I can get the baby hem, and I think like 2 mm in total, which was like very doable. But at the same time, they used to come off after washing in the washing machine. So this amount is perfectly fine and it will last very long. Press the hem. Take the front panel and press 1 cm of the middle seam. To clarify, the wrong sides are facing each other. So this pressed edge is towards inside. Do the step for both front middle edges. Lay the front panels with the right sides facing and pin the middle seam. This is a rare exception, but start pinning from the hem because we already finished the hem and we will not be able to correct it later. Make a stitch 18 mm apart from the edge. Press the seam open, but be careful not to ruin the previously pressed edge. Make a stitch 1 mm apart from the folded edge. If you have linen or cotton, then maybe you don't have to pin, but since I have this slippery, silky fabric, I better pin to fix it down properly. These two are going to be the tunnels where the drawstrings will go through, and we will be able to make the gathering at the front. Give a quick press to smoothen everything out. Take the drawstring panel and fold it lengthwise with the right sides facing. Make a stitch 1 cm apart from the raw edges. Do the step with both drawstrings. Trim off 7 mm of the seam allowance. There are other ways as well, but I will be using a security pin. So I pin it at one end of the drawstring and then I push it inside the drawstring, and this way I guide it from the inside out. Sometimes the beginning is so difficult, so I use pliers to push it towards inside. It takes a bit of patience, otherwise I'm risking to ruin the fabric. Plus, have you noticed that these slippery satin fabrics aren't that slippery when you are sliding it against itself? Press the drawstrings in a way that the seam is on the very edge. I sort of use my fingers to roll the seam towards the edge. This way the drawstring will be perfectly flat and straight. Let's put the drawstrings inside that tunnel. I will again use the security pin. I will put it at one end of the drawstring and I will guide the drawstring through the tunnel up to the upper edge at the waist. Be careful not to lose the other end of the drawstring inside the tunnel because then you will have to start again. I will pin that drawstring at the waist to fix it into place because I will still need to work with the other drawstring, and while there be a lot of movement going on, I risk to lose this drawstring inside the tunnel. And at the other end I am tying a knot so it never goes lost inside the tunnel. And then repeat the same step with the other drawstring. Make a stitch around 5 mm apart from the edge to fix the drawstrings at the waist. Now work only with the front panel. Lay the bias bindings right side to the front panel's right side. Make a stitch 7 mm apart from the edge. Try not to stretch bias binding too much because then it will get more narrow. Understitch the bias binding 1 mm apart from the previously made seam. In other words, make a stitch that connects bias binding with the seam allowance. Press the waistline. Fold the bias binding in a way that you can see a small peek from the front panel. This way the bias binding will not be visible from the outside. I am using the plank to make it cool down faster. I will trim off a bit of seam allowance at the tunnel area because there is a lot of thickness. Also check other parts. If the seam allowance is looking too wide, trim it narrower so you could fold around the bias binding. So now fold the bias binding around the seam allowance and press. Take your time with this. If there is a place where the bias binding isn't folding over, then trim the seam allowance narrower. Make a stitch around 8 mm from the upper edge. It might be that your bias tape is at some points wider or narrower. In that case, measure the spot where the bias binding is the narrowest and stitch using that distance, because this stitch will be visible from the outside and we want to keep it even. I'm an example for this. From the outside it looks good, from the inside it's not perfect, but oh well. Just press it and we will not tell anyone. Open the zipper and lay the according back-facing details with the right sides facing the back skirt panels. Use these notches to match them with the darts. Make a stitch 1 cm apart from the upper edge. Understitch the facing by making a stitch 1 mm apart from the previously made seam. Fold the facing towards inside and press it in a way that you can see a small peek from the skirt's back panel. I'm so sorry, but I forgot that we also need to neaten the bottom edge of the facing. Fold the facing over skirt's back panel in a way that the right sides are facing each other. Match the middle seam. Pin. Make a stitch around 7 mm apart from the edge. Be careful not to stitch on top of the zipper. Do the step for both sides of the zipper. Trim off the seam allowances at the corners. Be very careful not to cut in the stitch or the skirt panels itself. Flip this corner from the inside out and check if it's looking smooth, then it's great, you can go and press it. Or if it's looking a bit weird, then trim more of that seam allowance. I really like how it looks, and the zipper is also working. Let's finish sewing the side seams. Lay the front panel's upper edge exactly at the pressed line under the facing detail. Pin. Fold the facing detail over the front skirt panel in a way that the facing's right side is matching the front skirt's wrong side. Pin the facing side seam to the skirt panel's side seam. Make a stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Do the step with the other side seam as well. And also here, let's trim the corners because this will help us to avoid bulking later. Flip the corner, check if it looks good, and then you can press it. Press the corners, the side seam, and just overall press it, and that's it, you have finished. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave us a like. Check out the Sylvie top tutorial if you want to make a matching set. Subscribe to our channel for more sewing and knitting tutorials. See you next time, bye!